Recently, of course, unfortunately, there's been Hamas lost a leader in the form of Ismail Haniyeh is in Tehran. He was basically known as the international diplomatic face of Hamas, and he has been taking part in peace talks to reach a ceasefire in the Palestinian enclave. How would his death impact peace talks, and can there ever be peace in Palestine?
Of course, the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh was yet another heinous Israeli war crime, because in war you don't kill messengers, you don't kill diplomats, you don't assassinate them in other sovereign nations. But Israel doesn't bother about international law anyway. Ismail Haniyeh was a very charismatic, well-respected figure, not only within Hamas, but also across the Palestinian political spectrum and regionally. And you've seen the footage after his assassination where they performed the funeral prayers on him in Tehran and then again in Doha. Interestingly, and this probably has not happened that often in Islamic history in 1,400 years, that a Muslim figure, a public figure, a leader, is earning the love and respect of both major Muslim sects, the Sunnis and the Shia. That doesn't happen often, So Ismail Haniyeh was well regarded by many people. He was seen as the political face of Hamas, a diplomat. His loss will definitely, be felt, and it is felt in the Palestinian context. But Israel doesn't want to talk to anybody. Israel wants to expand its hegemony. That's the Israeli logic. They're not looking for partners. They're not looking for peace. They have wasted 30 years of peace talks since the Oslo Accords of the 1990s because they're not interested in peace and they're not interested in partners. They are interested in hegemony and dominance. The North American settlers signed some 360 treaties with the Red Indians, with the original inhabitants of North America. But today, a few hundred years later, where do you see the Red Indians? They were wiped out. It was a settler colonial project from the beginning, and it's the same in Israel. Israel, the right and the left agree that they should have Israel or Palestine as their homeland, and they should get rid of the original inhabitants. This started early on with the early leaders, people like Ben Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel. He actually drafted a plan called Plan Dalit, along with his army generals, to orchestrate ethnic cleansing. One Israeli historian studied this thoroughly in the 90s and published a very good book entitled The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. Professor Ilan Pape, he's lecturing in the UK right now. They planned to ethnically cleanse Palestine from day one. That was the plan from day one. It was not that there was a war and there was a decision by the United Nations to partition the land, so they accepted this, we didn't accept it. No. Nothing to do with that. Zionism is a genocidal ideology. Zionism believes that the Jewish people are more superior to others, that they have right in Palestine and they have exclusive right in Palestine. Everybody else has to leave. The question is when and how to leave. So from the beginning, Israel started with the idea of getting rid of as many Palestinians as possible. This carried on all the way until recent years. The war in Gaza now, the genocide in Gaza now is not something exceptional or out of context. No, Israel from day one has been genocidal. You Google Khan al-Ahmar, for instance. You Google what's happening in Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan neighborhoods in Jerusalem, the war that took place in 2021. You read about the 7 million Palestinian refugees who are still scattered across the world and the right of return. Israel was never interested in any Palestinian coming back. Israel is never interested in peace. They undermined the peace process for 30 years. So now Ismail Haniyeh was the political figure who would actually negotiate to get a ceasefire in Gaza, to end the ongoing fighting. Netanyahu isn't interested in that. Netanyahu is more interested in perpetual war. Why is that so? Because that is the only way to achieve his right-wing fantasies. maybe 10 or 20 years ago, when people talked about Israel dreaming, or the right wing in Israel dreaming to establish a state from the Nile to the Euphrates, from Egypt to Iraq, if people talked about it 20, 30 years, they will be dismissed as conspiracy theory fans. But now there are videos surfacing, maps surfacing, plans surfacing. It is spoken about by members of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. It's spoken about by even ministers. The use, for instance, of nuclear bombs is talked about by Israeli ministers. Why is that so? Because they really believe that they have to drive out as many Arabs, Palestinian, Lebanese, Syrian, Jordanian from their land to establish so-called homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. So killing Ismail Haniyeh is very, in this context, killing Ismail Haniyeh is very natural, because they don't want to negotiate. They're not negotiating with President Mahmoud Abbas, who is very pacifist, who is not challenging their authority over the West Bank. Do you want them to negotiate with somebody who is actually fighting back? They killed Hassan Nasrallah, and they are willing to kill anybody who opposes this agenda. They're not looking for partners. And this goes back to their ideology. Zionism is the problem. Now, Zionism is powerful. So it is committing massacres, genocide, etc. If Zionism is defeated as an ideology, as an idea, or if the regime is weakened, we will see different policies. When they were weak in the 1920s, 30s, and early 40s, they were willing to talk peace to the Palestinians. But when they took over the state, when Zionism was empowered and gained a regime and power, you see a very different policy. Not that the ideology changed, but the strategies and operations changed.